The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine.
Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
Sarah, today we're going to talk about Trek reference books.
Yes, we are.
And we've got our whole Trek reference library sitting in front of us right here. You can't see it, but we're going to show it to you one by one. This episode might be slightly longer than normal because there's a lot of books here, and we want to show you each thing that we have. Now, we're not going to spend a ton of time on every book, because that would just be absurd. But we just wanted to kind of show you what we have and what exists. Now, there is certainly more than what we've got, of course, because obviously
Yes.
Star Trek is this really popular thing, and a whole lot of literature has been written about it. Believe it or not, it seems like there are people who study Star Trek as nearly its own history, and there's a lot of stuff written. So I mean, there's guidebooks, and there's episode guides, and there's stuff written about the production of the series, and there's
About the physics and the science
and ethics and
all sorts of stuff.
and we're gonna show you all of that stuff right now. Now, let's start, Sarah, with the Star Trek Encyclopedia.
Good place to start.
Yeah, good place to start. Back before Memory Alpha, this was a really nice thing to have.
Yeah, that's very true. I know when I first started watching Star Trek, that's where I got a lot of my information. Just paging through, looking at pictures, and reading entries that sounded cool.
And this one's really neat. This is the one. This is the. I don't know how many editions there were. There were 2 or 3, but this was the final edition, and it's full color. This one's hardback. They put it out in paperback and hardback. This one will go into slightly more detail than we will some of the others, just because we know more about it.
Yeah.
Let me also mention too that there are some things here that we just have because we have a collection that we haven't read and don't know anything about. So we'll just show you those. But the ones we know more about, we'll talk about. Anyway, and you can tell that this thing's been used like crazy. It's very broken up and messed up because, well, Sarah and I, as you know, if you've been watching the show, we run a Star Trek club together, and this thing got a lot of mileage.
For trivia questions, and if nothing else.
So of course, it's an encyclopedia. It's got annotations. It's alphabetical, and this particular one has a big appendix. Not appendix. It's got an addendum in the back.
Yes.
That has a whole section of extra stuff added to the original edition, plus now it's in color.
Yeah.
Because before it wasn't. And anyway, that takes it up through Insurrection and the final seasons of DS9 and the seasons of Voyager up to that point. Now, the unfortunate thing is that they never put out another edition after that.
Right. So there's no end of Voyager, and there's no Enterprise whatsoever.
So you're never going to find a reference book on Enterprise that I know of. I don't think Enterprise exists really in any reference books. Well, there are some books that you'll see that we'll mention that have Enterprise in it, but there's no like show reference.
No full encyclopedia for Enterprise that I've seen yet. So.
Oh, but this one's good. It's written by Michael Okuda and Dennis Okuda, and the Okudas did a lot of the technical stuff in the Star Trek post TOS, all the way through Enterprise, and they created they designed a lot of the visual stuff, a lot of computer panels and stuff like that, all that kinds of stuff. They had a hand in, and of course they're also the folks who remastered the original series.
Right.
But anyway, you really don't even need this anymore because you've got Memory Alpha.
Yeah,
What do you think?
When I go looking for Trek stuff, sometimes it's a lot faster to go just online and look it up now, which is kind of sad in a way because it's fun to page through this, but especially if you're trying to look for something from all 5 series, rather than just go to this and then do Enterprise and go to this and do Enterprise online. I just do everything online now.
I would say though that this is kind of better written than some of Memory Alpha.
It is.
Of course, because Memory Alpha is written by everybody.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if you want something slightly more condensed, if you want to just read about something and it being slightly more condensed, because Memory Alpha in some ways is too thorough sometimes, where you're trying to thumb through stuff and you can't find it because there's too much information in an article.
And if you don't know what you're looking for and you just want to browse, this is better. It's hard to just browse for random things online.
Right.
And sometimes you'll look for something and you'll see something else on the page that'll catch your eye, and that's what I like about it.
But anyway, so as far as Trek reference goes, that's like the big the big giant thing. And when it came out, it was a huge deal for Trekkies because we didn't have things back then like Wikipedia. That was like 98, 99. You know, we didn't have things that we've got now, and it wasn't as easy to get reference. So in fact, I would also say, I wanted to make this point real quick too, that you're probably not going to see shows have the kind of reference library this does anymore. You know, like even if anything ever gets, things that get really popular are not going to have this.
Right.
They'll have some stuff, you know, like they just put out a giant encyclopedia for Lost, which was
awesome.
amazing. But you know, but it's not going to have the giantness that this does. Anyway, this is the Trek Navigator, written by Mark Altman and Edward Gross, and Sarah and I use this quite a bit also.
Yeah, it's fun to look for it. Look through. It has short synopses of all the episodes. What does it go up to? Is it through TNG?
It goes through. Yeah, it goes through TNG. I think it goes. Well, it's got the first 2 or 3 seasons of Voyager in it.
Okay.
So it goes post that. I think it doesn't get all the way through DS9 though.
Okay.
So anyway, but yeah, and they never put out another edition of that either, which is unfortunate. You'll see that with a lot of this stuff. That'll be a giant point you'll find in this video.
Yeah. Well, I guess nobody ever realized that Trek would end, so they said, "Oh well, we have this idea. Let's put out something."
They kept putting stuff out. I think you would have seen people wait a little bit on stuff if they'd known when it was going to end. If they'd known when things were going to cancel, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you also have to put things out that people will buy when it's popular.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the reason that you haven't seen
A lot of people wouldn't
updates to some of these books that we'd like to have seen.
Yeah. Just post-Enterprise, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Except for us.
Except for us.
We'd have bought it.
Yeah. But
anyway, let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, and then Altman and Gross, they each rate each episode. And sometimes I agree with them, and sometimes I don't.
This book is actually, by the way, where we got the term for our show, Treksperts, because this actually, the front of this is how I came up with it. Every Trek episode rated and reviewed by, you can't see it because it's tagged, but by America's leading Treksperts, and they actually are the Treksperts, much more so than we are. But they, you'll see some other books by them in here also. I don't know if you knew that, but they've written tons of Trek reference, and they have actually interviewed people who worked on the shows, and they know their stuff. But anyway, I find them to be in this really clever and witty, and they've got a lot of good points about episodes. But I certainly don't agree with a lot of what they have to say.
Yeah, they certainly have different tastes in episodes than I do. Than you do.
But the episode reviews are short, and it's just a fun reference. You watch an episode and then you go through and you see what they have to say. And I still do this. I'll still watch an episode and go see what they said if I didn't look it up before. That also, by the way, is where I got my rating system.
Yeah.
For Superhero Rewind and for the other things that we review on Geekvolution, or that I review. Vince does 5, but I don't. But anyway, they do 0 to 4 there. Okay, let's go through some other things a little bit quicker. Those are 2 of our favorite things that we used a lot. These are the Nitpicker's Guides by Phil Farron, and I have all 4 of them. Let me see if we can put these up real quick. So that's the Nitpicker's Guide for Classic Trekkers, and then we have the one for Next Gen. And he seemed to have thought that it was going to go well past 7 seasons, so he put this out after 6th season.
Oh no!
So then he had to put out a second volume for season 7. And the reason I have both is because this isn't just this book plus 7 like maybe you would have expected. Instead, he went back and he added new nitpicks for every single episode, based on a lot of fan letters where people said, "What about this?" And he's like, "You're right." And so he put that in there, and then he'd credit them. And then he did season 7. So if you ever want to get these, it's worth getting both. And then the S9, which sadly he never came back and did another volume of, and this only goes through season 4. I think 4. So that's it looks like. So that's a little bit unfortunate. What do you think about these?
I think they're a lot of fun. They're fun to read. Some of the things are a little bit too nitpicky, I think.
Yeah.
But others are really fun to look at and say, oh man, I better go and and look for that next time I see the episode.
He'll tell you science stuff, and he'll tell you production stuff, and he'll even go as far as to say, like, in this frame, this thing's in this person's hand, and the next frame it switches and it's in the other hand. And he'll tell you those kinds of inconsistencies.
Yeah.
And then he'll tell you things like, well, based on this episode, this thing is supposed to do this, but then this episode messed that up. And he'll tell you those sorts of things.
Yeah, or if you look in the reflection of this window, you can see one of the camera guys, or,
Strange things like that.
Sometimes,
and it's a little silly, and certainly it's nitpicky, but that's what it's supposed to be. It's a nitpicker's guide. So it's extremely nerdy, but it's fun to look at.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll say, "Oh, really?" And then other times you'll scratch your head and say, "No, I don't buy that. I don't think that's a big deal."
Yeah, and sometimes you'll be able to come up with some things watching the episode that he didn't come up with.
He did one for X-Files also.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
fun.
it didn't go all the way either, of course. But I don't know whatever happened to him. I did some research at one point trying to figure out where he went in his writing career, and I think at some point he just dropped off and quit. I don't know if he's not around anymore, or if he just ended up in a different career, or what he ended up doing.
Just
but
tired of nitpicking things.
Maybe so. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway.
But these are fun. These are really fun.
Yeah. And obviously, nearly all the stuff we're looking at, probably all the stuff we're looking at is out of print now. So the places to find them would be the obvious places: Amazon, eBay, places like that.
Any bookstores you have close by that sell older...
That sell used books. You will see some tags on some of these from Half Price Bookstore and stuff like that say like $1, $2. Because some of this stuff's really old and people don't want it anymore. But anyway, let's go to the companions now, and we won't spend very much time on these, but this is when things will get faster. So these are the original series compendiums. I don't know exactly what the difference is between the two of these. Both are written by the same person. They might be different. Yeah, I think this is the first version, and then this one goes up through Star Trek V. Yay! New amazing information from Star Trek V, Sarah.
Indeed.
Wonderful.
Just what I wanted to read about.
What the companions and the companions do, with one exception, which we'll get to. Have you looked at these at all?
A little bit, not much. A couple of them.
What they do is they give you an episode synopsis, most of the time a pretty quick episode synopsis, and then they give you background information. They say, here was what the production was like for this episode, here are some amusing anecdotes, here's some stories, here's when Shatner was ticked off about people, or whatever, fun little factoids and things like that. Those of course come from first-person interviews and things like that, and then they get compiled in these compendiums.
Yeah, and they have pictures and stuff.
And so that's the original series ones. And then we've got the Next Generation Companion. And then this one's called Captain's Log Supplemental 2, the 7th Season Guidebook. And I threw this in here because it's like it's like a companion, and it does the same thing, but it just goes through 7th season. Yeah. And tells you interesting anecdotes and things like that. And this one's cool too because it gives you like, one second. It shows like pictures of magazines and things from the time, which is kind of neat. But anyway, this is all fun for the sake of history. This is one of the greatest things ever made. Have you looked at this?
I have. That is.
This
really
book is
fun.
amazing. If there was a book like this for every famous TV show there ever was, we would all be a lot smarter and have a much better understanding of how television gets made. This is extremely thorough. And that's why it's so good. I don't know who Terry Erdman is, but he needs to write these for everything because it's got a bunch of. Not only is it really thorough, and not only does it have pictures for every episode, which some of these things don't do. This one goes through, and of course it's the whole series. It's all 7 seasons, and there wasn't one before this. It's got concept art. It's got. It's got pictures of models of props and all kinds of fun stuff like that. But anyway, anybody who loves DS9, even if you're not a giant Star Trek fan, you probably haven't gotten this far if you're not. But anybody who loves DS9, you need to have this and read it.
Agree.
You're not going to get this information anywhere else. And as hard as I recommended that, I'm not recommending this. This is the Voyager Companion, which is the exact opposite of the DS9 Companion. Have you looked at this?
A little bit, and put it down.
It gives really long episode synopsis, and the problem is it's written entirely from the perspective of in-canon, which is not what you want for something like this. You want background. You want interesting on-the-set kinds of stuff, right?
Otherwise, just watch the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it just gives you these facts, and then it'll be like, this is where we find out that the ship is here, and this thing happens here, and da 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 da. And it's like, I don't need to know. Like, I don't need this expensive book to tell me that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got some photos. It's well organized. It looks good, but it looks better than it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, I suppose the idea is that I don't know who wrote that. Paul Rudidis. But like, I don't know, I guess maybe the idea is, there's just, maybe people won't care as much about Voyager, but then why make that book? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to some other stuff. Here's some more in-canon type stuff, or at least based on canon type stuff. Here's the Star Trek Chronology. This one is the Akutas again. Anything that has the Akutas on it, you can be sure it's going to tell you things that that you might be interested to know, because they actually work on Star Trek, so they know things. This is a timeline. It's a timeline of things that happen in Star Trek. It's pretty much in canon type stuff, and gives you years and gives you some black and white, but pictures, and tells you stuff. Again, unfortunately, there's not one of these that goes all the way through.
Yeah.
That's the only, unfortunate part. That would be early 90s.
Yeah.
And there's probably an updated version of that I don't have, but there's not one that goes all the way up, unfortunate. Okay. I don't have these in much of an order, so this will get strange. Here's the Star Trek Cookbook. This is silly, but fun.
You know, I haven't looked through that yet.
Have you not still?
Nah, still.
This is written by Ethan Phillips and William Burns, but Phillips did most of it. And what?
It has Neelix on the cover.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's why you haven't looked at it. Right. This has real recipes and fake recipes, but mostly real recipes. In our Star Trek Club, we've used this. There are people who actually make things out of this. It gives you ways to make gok and hasperat and things like that, and it actually uses real ingredients and tries to make things that look similar to things that you see on the show. Romulan ale, Kanar, things of that nature. And then it has some silly things that aren't really funny, but it pretends to be. This is a Next Generation sketch book for the movies for Generations and First Contact. This is actually really very neat, and it's got lots and lots of concept art, model pictures, pictures from films, and background information about the technical side and the artistic side of making those two films.
Didn't know you had that one.
And you're going to see a couple things in here you don't know that I had. This is Where No One Has Gone Before, History and Pictures. I've not looked at this very much. It looks like it's, again, early 90s, mostly TOS and TNG stuff, and it's just a lot of cool photos and the kind of stuff that probably wouldn't be made as often post the internet. But full color and pretty and kind of fun to look at, and it has background information and things like that. This is a tech manual. This is Mr. Scott's Guide to the Enterprise. This is one of the TOS tech manuals. I don't have the other one. There's one that's like nearly leather bound, really cool looking.
Oh, yeah.
I think my stepdad has it, but I don't have it, and it's really neat. Anyway, this is the other one, and it's in black and white, and it's just kind of a tech manual of the original series Enterprise,
Yeah.
and uniforms and different things from the show. You ever looked at this thing?
Yes, actually,
Worlds
I've read
of the
the whole
Federation.
thing.
Have you really?
I
Well,
have.
you can talk about that one.
Well, it's been a while, but it's great. It's hilarious. It has crazy pictures of species in there, and I don't think all of them even show up in the show, which is weird.
There's some TAS stuff in there, animated series, and it only goes through like early TNG, which means that in order to make a full book, they put in a bunch of like really minor species or people that you've never
people
heard
that
of.
we never see on screen, that they do, like the Coridons.
And they just made
up what they look like, and then they show, what their world is like and how many planets are in their system.
Once again, I wish they'd put one of these out after there were, thousands of Star Trek species that we actually had seen, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and all the species have one arm out when you look at them front view, and then you see them side view, and it's kind of silly, but it's fun to page through. Like I said,
it has no right to exist, but it's that's great.
Yeah. Ooh, pictures.
Right. The Tholian and the Excalibur. Right. Well, I don't know. I guess we're just kind of enjoying this collection while we're showing it to you because we haven't looked at this stuff in a long time, or at least some of it, right?
Well, some of it's been packed. So.
I love this. This is one of my favorites. This is the Star Trek Star Charts book, and they were nice enough to put this out a little bit later. This was out during, I think, season 2 of Enterprise, and that's why it's got the NX-01 on the front. You know, they're cashing in on what's current, what was current at the time. So anyway, this would have been 2002. So it was published during Enterprise second season, and anyway, have you looked at this very much?
No.
This actually has full star charts of the Star Trek universe of each of the quadrants, and then it goes in close and it shows you like specifically all the planets inside of a region. So here's Cardassian space, you know, and you know, it'll show you Klingon space, and it'll show you, and then what it'll do is it'll show you what the maps look like between the different centuries. So this is a map of the of trade routes in the Alpha Quadrant during the 22nd century, and it'll show you even like the routes of NX-01 during as far as this got, and then it'll show you like the route Voyager took through the Delta Quadrant.
That's pretty cool.
Check
that out.
It's fun. It's pretty, if nothing else. This is the TNG Technical Manual, and it's written by Michael Okuda and Rick Sternbach. So again, guys who actually worked on the series. Now some of this is made up stuff.
Yeah.
Naturally, you know, they do their best to try to use real science and stuff from Trek to tell you how each of the different sections of the ship work. It's really dry. It's supposed to be. It's a technical manual, so that's what it is. But anyway, that's kind of what it looks like. These are not really referenced, but I felt the need to show them because they're just fun things we have, and I like to sometimes brag about strange fun things we have. These are the Star Trek crossword puzzle books. Sarah is a huge crossword puzzle person.
Yep.
Do you like these?
I do. They're fun. I wish they had been made a little bit differently. They have some things that are so obscure that even if you're a big Trek fan, you can't get them at all. You end up having to search up a lot of things online just to answer them. And then it was like, and at that point it's like, thank God for Memory Alpha, right? Yeah, definitely. Otherwise there's no possible way you could do those. They do get a little bit hard. I also think there's, these are not the only ones. These are the first two. This is book 1 and 2. I believe that there are 4. I think there's a third and a fourth one. But yeah, they're all done by John Sampson, and I thought they were cool, but I'm not very good at crossword puzzles, and it had really obscure stuff, like you said. Yes, and it's not all Trek. In order to make the crossword puzzles work, sometimes they throw in non-Trek related. And then your brain has to work differently to make it happen. Yeah. Let me also mention, right here, we're probably close to the halfway point, that you may eventually see recommends on some of this stuff. We're not spending a lot of time on this, so like you know, on Captain Vince Recommend, I may at some point take one of these things and talk more about it. So anyway, that's what we're doing there. This, once again, not exactly referenced, but kind of fun. This is a Star Trek pop-up book. Yeah, it's really fun. And the first time I looked at it, I was like, oh no, these are the Voyages. No, that's the name of the last Enterprise episode. But this, of course, was made in 1996 and has nothing to do with that. It's just really fun. I don't know what else to say. It's a pop-up book. It's fantastic. A really well-made pop-up book. So anyway, that's my favorite. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Right, there you go. Okay, on to the Klingon stuff. Okay. Klingon stuff? Klingon stuff. Okay, we should start with the Klingon Dictionary. Klingon Dictionary. You should talk about that. Very good reference. The beginning part is just the grammar and syntax of the Klingon language. So great place to go if you actually want to learn how to put the words together. In case you don't know, by the way, my wife has actually studied the Klingon language pretty in depth, and certainly doesn't know it fluently, but knows stuff, understands the syntax, knows how it works, and has taught it in our Star Trek club for a number of years. And this is where you start. Yes, this is the place to start for that. And then after you get through the grammar stuff, it has the dictionaries, English to Klingon, Klingon to English, and then at the back it has an addendum where it has some extra words that I guess they made after they put the book together. I guess so. I think that I guess there was another edition before this, but I've never seen it. This is the one that always floats around, and it's like, well, why is there an addendum if it's the only edition? But there must have been another one. So because at the top they always say including new material from Next Generation and Star Trek 6, and I'm like, where was the other one? So anyway. Yeah, I've never seen it, but really, really good if you want to learn Klingon. Now you always wish it had been laid out slightly differently, but well, right, because you always told me that it was weird that they started with nouns. A little bit. problem is with Klingon, there are nouns, there are verbs, and there are other things that just all fall into a group. I kind of wish they'd started out with just how to put sentences together, and then gone to, this is how you do nouns, this is how you do verbs.
Yeah.
I don't know. It works. It works.
Okay, other Klingon stuff. This is this is in some way kind of the second Klingon dictionary.
It is. It gets a little bit too in depth for me, as far as I don't really care that there are different like colloquialisms
Dialects and things.
Dialects, and it's not a real language, so it should just be straightforward, I think.
Can I see this for just a second? Okay, this was written by Okran. Good. I wasn't sure if it was or not, because it seemed kind of odd that he would add that much stuff to it.
Yeah.
Mark Okran invented the Klingon language, for those of you who don't know, and he wrote the dictionary, he wrote this, he wrote some other stuff.
But it has an extended dictionary in it, and a lot more cultural words. A lot of more obscure words are translated in here. So it's a good book to have. It has a lot more actually about the culture. So, yeah, I recommend it.
Then, once again, not referenced, but thought I'd mention it, the Klingon Hamlet. This is Hamlet, translated entirely into Klingon. Have you looked at this?
A little bit, yep. Yeah, it's a lot of Klingon all at once, but at least they have the English translation on one side and then the Klingon on the other.
The thing though is that on the one side they don't give you the translation. They give you the original English, because the Klingon is not word for word.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So
right, yeah.
it almost would have been better if they'd given you the direct translation, I think, because what they do is they give you places in the back where they tell you here's this act in this scene, and here's where we had to change the story and where we had to change lines in order to make it work. It would have been better if they'd just given you the straight English of what they had to translate, but that's just me. This is a Klingon book called The Klingon Way of Warriors Guide. This is also written by Mark Okran. I've not read this. I think it's just, like, it looks like it's just phrases in Klingon and then a description of what they're about and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I haven't even looked at that.
It's got actual Klingon in it, but then it looks like it's also talking a lot about culture and stuff like that. So, anyway, that's what that is. On to the more real-world stuff. We'll do this real quick. There are several books that look at a real part of either social science or physical science and then use Star Trek to back points up. So you have The Ethics of Star Trek, where we look at real ethical philosophies and things like that, and then we use Star Trek as examples, and that was Judith Barrett. And I've read part of this. I think it's good. These days, there's a lot of these sorts of things. This is one of the first ones. You see a lot of these ethics books written by real professors of ethics, where they use some part of pop culture. So like the Ethics of Watchmen. Yeah. I have that.
Yeah.
I've seen it with I've seen it with other things. This one's good though.
That one is good.
You should take a look if you haven't.
I have.
Okay, then we have The Physics of Star Trek. Now, I've read this. I read at least half of it. You've read this, right?
I've read the whole thing, actually.
Yeah, this is by Lawrence Krauss. This is really good. This is really smart stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. They go into the different science things in Star Trek that might work or would be impossible in real life. I think they talk about the transporter in there, the holodeck, warp drive, things like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's really great, and it's got a foreword by Stephen Hawking, which is neat. Then we've got The Metaphysics of Star Trek, which is by Richard Hanley, which is just, like, it's a lot like The Ethics of Star Trek, but it's metaphysics. It's self-explanatory. Have you read this?
That one I haven't read.
I read part of it, but I don't remember it. It's been years. But anyway, there's that. I wanted to, this isn't exactly a reference either, but I just wanted to throw this in here because it's funny. This is Make It So, Leadership Lessons from Star Trek The Next Generation.
I think it would have been a lot cooler if they hadn't recapped the entire episode, because what they do is each chapter they make it about an episode and they say, okay, well, here's the big lesson Picard wants to teach you from this episode. And the problem is that if you've seen the episode before, you have about 15 pages where you're extremely bored. Yeah,
you could basically skip to the end and read about 2 paragraphs and be done.
Yeah.
It was a cool idea, kind of, but I wouldn't have written it in Picard's voice.
I would have, but not with the episode.
But it didn't even sound right.
Well,
Like, yeah.
if it had been better in his voice.
Yeah.
Or more in his voice.
Exactly. But I mean, this is a PhD. You know, Wes Roberts, this is a PhD. This isn't a person who should be writing Picard's voice. This is a person who should be writing nearly a self-help book on how to lead your life based on stuff Picard did.
Yeah.
It would have been a way better book if it had been done that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think Picard's voice is fun in concept, but
See, maybe he should have gotten with Patrick Stewart.
There you go.
And then, like, he decided what was going to be in the book, and then Patrick Stewart wrote it in Picard's voice. That's what they should have done. I don't know if Patrick Stewart can write, but that's what they should have done.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have several other reference books, but we're well out of time, and they're not like nearly as cool as and important as some of the other stuff we mentioned. So I'm looking at a few other things here that aren't really worth mentioning, so I won't bring them up. The only other one I wanted to throw in here is Great Birds of the Galaxy. This is by once again Gross and Altman, and I wanted to mention this because I've read this all the way through. I don't think you've looked at this.
No.
This gives biographies and interesting tidbits about a lot of the people who worked on original series and Next Generation, and it's really insightful. It tells you about Roddenberry first, and then it goes into Berman and Brega and other people who've worked on Star Trek, and like I said, lots of great background and totally worth checking out. And there may be multiple. I don't know if there's any other editions of this, but anyway, this is the kind of stuff Outland and Gross do, and it's totally worth reading. So.
Sure.
So anyway, that's everything we're going to show you. Thanks a lot for watching Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
If you have something you'd like us to talk about later on in a future video, or there's an episode you'd like us to review, leave that in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed us going through our collection of reference books. And like I said, a lot of this stuff is available probably through eBay and Amazon and other places like that. So go check them out if there's anything you're interested in. And thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time on Ask the Treksperts.
The best is yet to come.
The